Welcome to Church History, welcome to 401, welcome to the intro episode. So thank you for joining us for this. You have chosen wisely. My plan is that in these next 20 episodes we're going to skim over the course content. You've got my lecture notes, print those off. That would be my advice, to print those off in full. I know others find it okay to have it on their iPad or laptop, fair dues. But you've heard my advice. I just think it's handy to be able to look it up and to read it and to turn to pages. I will not be reading you those lecture notes, but I will be using them as we skim through these 20 episodes. And then when we meet, my prayer is, that we will be able to have more of a seminar than a lecture. So I'll just simply stand back and go, what did you think of that? And then hopefully we'll just get into a conversation about this aspect of church history that we've been looking at. So for it, you're going to need some reading. Now, the set book for this is Miranda Threlfall-Holmes' Essential History of Christianity. Get this, read it. It's really thin, it's really readable. Just get on with it. We won't be using this as a course book. I won't be saying, now children, turn to page 8. It won't be that sort of thing. But you will find it helpful to have had this and to have had a read of it. So buy it as a Christmas present to yourself so that come January, you've read this, you're ready to go. But there's a bunch of other secondary source books that you'll find really helpful. Mark Noll's Turning Points. He picks on 20 aspects of church history, going right through the 20 centuries, and which he explains why this is important and relevant and what's going on at this point. It's really well done, it's very readable. You can get the Audible for it if you like your Audible books. My favourite church history book is this I read once a year because I think it's so brilliant. And you can get the Audible for this as well. So if you're doing a lot of driving or gardening or something, get hold of this and have a read of this. So this is Bruce Shelley's Church History in Plain Language. Definitely worth getting hold of. This book I think you should buy. I do think you should buy this one. All right, it's History of Christianity by Diarmaid MacCulloch. Now, on the one hand, it's really, really thick. You're never going to read this. So what you do is you buy the Kindle version. Don't buy the paperback, hardback version. Unless, of course, you need a proper door open. Fair enough. Don't buy this. Buy the Kindle version, because on the Kindle version, you will be able to search. So if you're writing an essay on Athanasius, you'll be able to type in Athanasius, and you'll be able to find what Diarmaid MacCulloch has to say about Athanasius. It's probably in here. It's bound to be in here. And then you can use that in your essays. And the thing that's brilliant about this book is because it is so all-pervasive and scholarly, you will be able to use it in every essay you ever write for St. Augustine's. Pretty much promise you that one. You'll be able to use it. So do consider those books. There are other books, and those other books will be more focused on a particular aspect of church history, and we will look at those as we go through the course. I'll bring out different books that are particularly pertinent to the chapters that we're looking at as we go through. Now, you're also, when you come to write your assignments, you're going to want to include not just secondary source books like what I showed you then, but also primary source material. So here's where we're looking for an actual quote, not of what Diarmaid MacCulloch has to say about Athanasius, but what about Athanasius has to say for himself. And so you're looking to see where you can find primary source material. Here's an easy one. This is A New Eusebius. This one is edited by J. Stevenson. He put this together in the 1970s. There was a guy called Eusebius of Caesarea, and he, around 300s, found himself in a library, and he put together his favourite bits of church history. And he put them together into a book, and it's come down to us as, Eusebius's Church History. And you can still get it. But then there was a guy later on, Stevenson, and he put together his favourite compilation. And so it's called A New Eusebius. The cover will not look like this. It'll be shiny and green. I think it's still published in that way. So it won't look like that, but it will be that sort of book. Very useful if you are writing, an essay where the issue is relevant prior to 337. Do you have a look? Some of these church history books have only a certain range of original source. When we get to Reformation, I'll point you to Lindbergh's books there. Very good for primary source material, but only for Reformation if you're writing that essay. Here's one that covers the entire period. This is Bettinson's Documents of the Christian Church, Henry Bettinson. And this is a good one, and it covers all of church history, so it's you know, it's a little bit hit and miss. So when you're careful about buying these things, delay buying until you've kind of worked out which essays and assignments you're looking to do, and then that will give you a slight sense of push and shove about what you're wanting to buy. Consider having a chat to, because I don't know where we are in January, whether we will have easy access to St. Augustine's library. Perhaps we will by then, but have a look around your vicar's library and see what books he's got, she's got, that you could easily use, and just sort of make a mental note and go, all right, maybe I could write an essay about that, because I can see that she's got all those books. Alister McGrath has he's put together a bunch of primary source material books, and here's one. It's quite heavy, it's quite thick, and it's quite expensive. The downside to the Alister McGrath ones is that they are good for theology and they're not so good for history, and so it's not quite so easy to think about how and where you're going to use this in your essays. It's still pretty good. If you've got one of these, then great, don't sell it, keep it, and it'll do you well. And hopefully by the time you're writing your assignments, we will be able to work out a little bit more about what online access we can give you for different things. You've got 2 assignments in this course. First one is an essay assignment. The blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church. Just how important was persecution to the growth of the church? Now, you'll be slightly disappointed to discover that actually my lecture actually does touch a little bit on that, but doesn't really. So that there is this expectation that you're going to have to do some reading for yourself. This isn't the kind of course where I will feed you the answers and then you just write down everything I say and hand that in, you'll be fine. It's not that kind of course. You've probably figured that out by now. So you've got yourself an essay title. You've written an essay. Simon Stocks has led you through that already. So go to it. Do have a careful eye for your footnotes and your bibliography, and try and get those right. It's really worth getting it right at the beginning of the course, because then every time you forget, oh, how do I footnote a website? Oh, I did that before, let's go and see what I did. You just look it up and there it is. So it's worth getting it right now, if you can, because it saves later markers from giving a proper slap down for it. The second assignment is called a resource and a rationale. The resource and rationale assignment is again same length, 2,500 words. And the first part, the resource, that's sort of like 1,000 words of a magazine article that explains the relevance of Wittenberg. Why is Wittenberg an important place in church history? 1,000 words, go. So that's the first part of the assignment. And the second part of the assignment is the rationale. So explain yourself. What studies have you looked into? What was the difficult stuff you haven't been able to put into the resource because you know so much more and you weren't able to put that in because of the word count, and so you put it into the rationale. When you see this, do print off both sides of the paper, because on the other side particularly there's some details about how to go about doing this. Moira Aston is the other lecturer on this course. So if you find yourself being marked by Moira, it is definitely worth trying to get from her, what does she look for in a resource and rationale assignment? They're tricky little fellas, I think. There's one that's to do with a cathedral and the incarnation, all right? It's a trap, don't do it, okay? Which many of you will go, aha, I see, he's goading me into doing the cathedral essay assignment topic. Fine, do it, but focus on the incarnation. I really don't give a monkeys about the cathedral. I'm focusing on the incarnation. You're supposed to use the cathedral as symbols and pointers to the story of the historical Christian historical development of the understanding of the incarnation. Okay, we will be looking at that. Look out for the oil and water later on. So that's your assignments. If we were meeting, we would each week be having a little chat about a particular piece of original source material. And they're usually in a separate PDF. That is definitely worth printing off. And it's definitely worth sort of taking almost like a day to just read your way through the whole lot of it. Google bits and bobs when you come to looking at some of these and going, what's this about? What gets me excited as I read this? What do I look at and go, this makes no sense? So that when we meet, we can have a discussion about it rather than me having to do a lecture on it. That would be so much the better. The original source document stuff. Okay, well done. This is the first of 20. We're in for a long trip here. But what we turn to next is why did Christians get eaten by lions?